watching Canadian Muslim news on Muslim Network TV. From Toronto, Ontario, I'm Catherine Bullock. Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace. Today, an interview with Mohammed Maxwel Hassan about Canadian Muslim youth and their future. But first, a few news headlines. Plaques for former Prime Ministers to be revised and rewritten. Pair of lungs transported using an unmanned drone in Canada. New Jersey teacher allegedly forcibly removed an elementary student's hijab, and camp conditions deteriorate for evicted Muslims in Assam, India. And now the details. With fall maintenance upcoming, following the defacement of Mackenzie King's picture on a commemorative plaque back in January, federal officials are rethinking the plaques that are to be displayed on all the former Prime Minister's grave sites. Experts will gather to write these commemoration plaques, one for each of the Prime Ministers. This will include their time in office and the historical significance of their grave. Several academics have raised concerns regarding the content within the current plaques. This is especially in regards to the plaque of Sir John A. Macdonald. While Macdonald was the first Prime Minister of Canada, he was also one of the chief creators of the residential school system. The chair of the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation in Winnipeg, Cynthia Wesley Esquimaux, calls for a diverse panel to contemplate and debate the contributions of each Prime Minister, weighing equally the positives and negatives. The committees will have to work quickly, though, as routine maintenance is needed for several graveyard sites. In an historic move, a pair of lungs were transported from Toronto Worsen Hospital to Toronto General Hospital. The 6-minute journey was the first successful transport of a living organ with an unmanned drone. The flight was in the planning stages for 18 months. In order to fly the drone in a busy Toronto neighbourhood, the team conducted multiple tests for changes in elevation, barometric pressure, vibration, or any other possible contingencies. The final drop was done using a parachute and GPS system. With this trip being the first, there are 14 other projects that are being planned for the future. In 2020, over 2,600 Canadians received transplants. The team hopes that this new mode of transportation will become much like airplane travel today, fast and efficient. Olympic fencing champion Ibtihaj Mohammed has accused Tamar Herman, a teacher in New Jersey, of forcibly removing a second grader's hijab. In a post on Facebook, Mohammed labelled this action as abuse and called for people to contact the principal and superintendent to combat this discriminatory behaviour. Ronald Ritchie, Herman's attorney, claims that the allegations are false. The student, Sumaya Wyatt, came to class wearing a hood. With a no-hood policy in school, Herman asked Sumaya to remove the hood, but took back her request once she realised that the student wore a hijab. The executive director of the Council on American Islamic Relations of New Jersey, Saladin Maksud, has called the incident absolutely unacceptable and has advocated for Herman's dismissal from the school. As of now, Herman is on leave with an ongoing investigation into the allegations. And finally, over 1,000 families are currently displaced from their homes in Assam, India, and live in makeshift camps. This follows the deadly government eviction last month, where the police were sent to clear out Muslim villagers from their homes, claiming that they were on government land. The villagers are Muslims of Bengali origin, many of whom had immigrated into Assam over 40 years ago. The government labelled the villagers as illegal immigrants as a ploy to evict them. Recently, the villagers fled from their homes without any belongings or way of living, including food, clothes, or books. Evictees defecate in open air as makeshift toilets remain few and unclean. Schools were demolished during the eviction and remain closed. This eviction follows Modi's Citizenship Amendment Act, in which residents must show a valid passport or travel documents to qualify as citizens. Otherwise, they constitute illegal immigrants and can be jailed or deported. That's it for the news. And now our conversation with Mohammed Hassan Maxwel on Canadian Muslim youth and their future. Welcome to the show, Mohammed Hassan. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh, Dr. Kathy. Pleasure to be on board here.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. We're looking forward to your insights on Canadian Muslim youth and their future. So we had on the show actually a couple of weeks ago a young lady called Nikita Valerio, who's working with the Institute of Religious and Socio-Political Studies. They had just completed a coast-to-coast interview with Muslim youth about all kinds of things. And it came up, the number one issue was a sense of identity crisis or a dual identity crisis, and something they called code switching, where in one environment they're one identity and in another environment they're another identity, and this was putting great stress and strain. What's your sense as a youth leader of this issue of code switching and identity crisis?
I never heard of code switching. That's a really interesting term, but I hear it loud and clear. Like that's a perfect way of explaining the root cause of a lot of the foundational elements of youth confusion. If you don't know who you are, then how do you know where you're going to go? It's almost like you're hopping in a car, and if someone asks you where's your destination and you have no idea where you want to go, I mean, what's that going to be? So yeah, absolutely. Youth identity, the foundational, the crux of the issue. But to add on an extra layer to this whole situation, I would say is this whole problem of looking to the past more than the future. Oftentimes, a lot of people, especially in the Muslim community, they might look to the golden age back in the day. When Europeans had the dark ages, this was the Assam golden age, and people look to that. They look at the amazing inventions, they look at all the progress, and they look back and they're like, the glory days are behind us. What can we produce now? But I think now, with untapped potential with the youth, they can easily make way and progress.
I've always thought that I've always thought the reason there was that focus on the golden age aspect was because of a low self-esteem in the Muslim community. And it's a way of saying, well, you guys Westerners might be powerful now, but hey, guess what? We were once too. Do you find that mentality is hampering youth identity and as Muslims in Canada?
Absolutely. I think things don't have to be mutually exclusive. I mean, like for me, myself, I was born and raised here in Canada. So first generation, for me, like the whole concept of us versus them, or here's Western and this is East, or like, all that sort of stuff doesn't apply. You can easily be a mover and a shaker for everyone, like in the best way possible within the Muslim context. It's just, you got to have that foundational mindset in the beginning. You look to the past, but you use the past to create a better future. And one prime example of looking to the past is our Nabi, Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, our beloved Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and the companions. Learning from them, it's a good way to look in the rearview mirror for that. But how do you use that for today's time? That's where the key struggle is, and that's where the journey can begin.
That's the whole $64 million question that Muslims have been grappling with ever since colonialism and what they could feel like the onslaught of modernity. These are very sort of abstract points. Do you think that Muslim youth get lost in all of that?
Yeah, if you can't picture something, then there's no hope. It's like your imagination runs wild. It's if you can't sink your teeth into a concrete concept, it's almost like we gotta change. Okay, change what? We gotta fight this. Okay, what? It's like this ghost. It's like this invisible object. So, and there's no progress to be made. But if I can borrow for a moment, like one of the reasons why John F. Kennedy was so successful, during his term as a president, irrespective of whether you agree with his presidential reign or not, one of the most famous examples of his time was saying that within 10 years, within a decade, we're going to land on the moon. He had a timeline, it was specific, and there was a goal that everyone can rally behind. It was something that's never been done before, something that is absolutely astronomically relevant in technology and science, et cetera, but he rallied up everyone in that time to accomplish a goal. So if the youth today don't have something that they can be confident in and have a goal and dream and vision that they can latch onto, then for sure they're going to be spinning their wheels and going around in circles.
Do you think it's as easy as that, though? What about structural racism and institutionalized Islamophobia? Somebody might have I interviewed a young woman once who wanted to be a graphic designer, but then she felt that as a woman wearing hijab, she'd never get any jobs. So the if you dream it, what's that? If you dream it, you can be it. Kind of Disneyland idea. How does that kind of jive with the racism?
Yeah, well, in terms of racism, I'm not necessarily an expert on that, so I would rather, what I can speak on are there are some things that you can control and there are some things you can't control. Yeah, speaking to the whole idea of if you can dream it, you can do it. I know there's this one mentality, and there's some benign intentions behind it. When kids are growing up, you can be anything you want to be. And yeah, it's true. It makes sense. It sounds good in principle. But as you grow older, you start to realize that maybe there are some more barriers and things that you that you didn't think were there, but then as time goes on, you start to realize these things become evident. What I can say is that focus on the things you can control, not the things you can't control. I remember, if I can humbly share one thing that I saw, a phrase that I came across, which is, you're always too something to someone. You're always too something to someone. Maybe you're too tall, too short. In this case, maybe too Muslim, too this, too that.
So imagine that you're sitting in a cafe with some of the young people and someone says to you, hey, Brother Mohammed, I'm a little bit confused about my future. I'm not exactly sure what I should be doing. What's your advice?
Well, at the outset, I would say I'm really proud that they're asking that question that early on in their life. So many times people go through life passively. They wake up, they go to school, they go to university or college without really understanding why. They try to get a job just to pay the bills, and then they wonder down the line 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and they wonder what's happened. So the fact that they're asking questions at this stage, I applaud them. It's great to ask those questions now. Now, in terms of what to do next, you might be wondering to yourself, okay, I'm in grade 11, I'm in grade 12, or I'm a teenager, I don't know, I have my whole life ahead of me. The fact of the matter is that if you find what you're good at, that's a good indication of what you can do. Now, where can you find those skills? What can you find those areas that you can be into? One area is that what comes easily to you. Look back at your past. Look back at your, even go back to your report cards, for example. What are some things that come easily to you that you can use? Maybe you're amazing at writing. Writing comes easily to you. Maybe you're awesome at drawing. Okay, be a graphic designer. That's another thing. Find the thing that comes easily to you, and that's an opportunity to make way and move forward.
You said at the beginning of our conversation that you thought looking back to the reviving the golden age era was a shackle on the youth. But as I said, I found that people use it as a self-esteem boost. So can you kind of put those two thoughts together? What you said at the beginning about reviving the golden age mentality is holding youth back, and advising a youth to find what you're good at and move forward with it. Can you kind of connect those two thoughts for us?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reconcile between the two. Like there's no reason, nothing wrong with looking back in the past, but it's wrong to stay there. It's okay to look back at, like, if you have a rear view mirror in your car for a reason, you got to look back once in a while. But if you're driving just looking at the rear view mirror, you're never going to move forward. You're going to crash. So to reconcile the two notions, yes, it's great to look. We have, mashallah, as Muslims, rich history of so many great inventions. You can study on your own. You're going to be fascinated with so many things. Like, for one example, there was this one, if you like to travel, you enjoy, now if everything is COVID friendly and, everything is safe. If you like to go on a plane, you got to thank Abbas ibn Farnas for that. He laid the groundwork and the foundation for that. So it's great to look back at the past, to get inspiration, to have that self-esteem boost. Like, hey, as Muslims, we did contribute to society for the greater good. But it's wrong, I would argue, to live there, to just say the best times of my life are there. So
so you use it as an inspirational jumping off board, and it's not going to be a guy experimenting with wings that he flies for like 5 meters and falls down. It's going to be somebody inventing, I don't know, like the AI or the space robot or that kind of thing. You're saying take the principles from that age, but use it to spring forward.
Absolutely. I'll borrow again from someone else. Tesla, if you're familiar with Tesla, Elon Musk, one of the things that I remember watching an interview of him, he was saying that people just assume technology progresses and just moves forward. It just doesn't happen that way. There's a lot of work that goes into having the next iPhone or the next, pick whatever technology that moves forward, the cameras that we're having, the microphones that we're using, the lighting, everything is a result of constant innovation, reflection, and iteration. So at the end of the day, if we don't be at the forefront of being producers as Muslims, then we're going to end up just being consumers and have nothing to show for it.
So that's a really lovely way to end. Be producers, not consumers. And in Islamic History Month, which this is, I think that's a really inspirational message to send, not just to the youth, to all of us. So thanks very much for coming on the show to share us with your inspirational insights.
Yeah, most welcome, Dr. Kathy. It's an honor.
That's it from us. You've been watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Stay tuned for our next episode. Stay safe and God bless.